Okay, everyone, a big Shabbat Shalom to all of you. Welcome to the river, as we affectionately call it. It's good to be here on another weekly Sabbath and just to enjoy the fellowship of his people on this blessed and set apart day. If you're watching this on the recording and you do wish to come join us live and be part of the live stream, do come join us. We do gather every weekly Sabbath. Our anchor in the ground is 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And if you're wondering how to join us on the live stream and be a part of what the Father's doing in our community, just head over to riverbranchfellowship.com. Scroll down on the main homepage and you'll see a link to subscribe to our weekly newsletter, which when you click on will bring up this box where you can type in your first and last name and email and hit subscribe. And that will put you on our weekly mailing list, which means you'll receive the weekly newsletter every Friday, which contains the relevant login details and information to come join us live. So if you've been erring on the side of caution or sitting on the fence, make that leap of faith and come be a part of a beautiful community that the Father has orchestrated and built up in our midst. All right, the heavenly census. We continue through our journey. I can confirm today is the penultimate part. So we've got this session and next week where we will conclude our journey through this heavenly census. I've titled today The Cosmic Exile. This is where we're going to really bring into sharp focus everything that we've looked at over the course of this series. And today is really going to be the place where the title, the heavenly census, really comes into play. We've covered a lot in this series and it's been deep, it's been rich. And that's just from really a scratch off the surface in this great plan of redemption. Remember that this is actually a Feast of Weeks themed series, a counting of the Omer. Again, the counting of the Omer, the Feast of Weeks, and the Feast of Pentecost or Shavuot, as it's known in the Hebrew, by and large is great. There's a lot of people don't really understand the depth of this appointed time that's kind of in the middle of the appointed times calendar, both on the Christian side and on the Judah side. That, Shavuot and the Feast of Weeks and the counting of the Omer is left alone by and large. And so I'm hoping that the journey through this series has really enriched our understanding of truly how important and pivotal this particular appointed time and all its thematic connections, really how big a part they play in the understanding of even things like the good news, the gospel. So we're going to go quite deep today. And many of you are probably anticipating that and I'm going, yes, finally. But before we jump into the living waters, as it were, let's quickly recap what we did last week. We looked at the themes of the Jubilee, and there's three primary themes: the forgiveness of debts, the liberation of slaves or captives, and this one is often missed out, the returning of tribal inheritance to its rightful owner. And we see how the theme of redemption, of the redemption of people, but the redemption of property, is closely and intrinsically linked to the Jubilee itself. We saw briefly how, eschatologically speaking, or from a plan of redemption perspective, the Jubilee is actually linked to the full Moedim and the fulfillment thereof, because the Torah states that the Jubilee was announced on the day of Yom Kippur. And so when you really start digging into the fulfillment of the fall appointed times, you'll see that the Jubilee is closely related to this. We see that Messiah, with the spring feast almost 2,000 years ago, paid the price for the redemption process, so that when we come to the fulfillment of the fall appointed times, redemption can the forgiveness of sins was thought of within a Jubilee context. Again, when we in the modern Western world think of forgiveness, we think of it from an apologetic point of view of, I'm sorry. Oh, thank you. I accept your apology. And actually, that's not a biblical understanding of forgiveness. Whenever you see the forgiveness of sins in the Torah and in the prophets, but especially in the Brit Hadashah, in what we call the New Testament, the Greek underlying the forgiveness of sins is actually the release of sins. We have been redeemed from the price of sin, from the wages of sin, which is death. And so one of the things to remember is that part of the fallen condition is that we will die. We will die, and our soul will go to Sheol. If our souls are not redeemed, our souls would remain in Sheol. And we saw how we cannot redeem ourselves, and we cannot redeem each other. It takes someone greater, someone who is sinless, to pay the price, thus being able to pay the price of redemption of our souls so that our souls do not remain in Sheol. Thus we are set free from the power of sin, which is death. But we will die. As Yah said to Adam, when you eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, when you eat of it, you will die. And here we are, condemned to die, but we've got good news. We have hope. Our souls will not remain in Sheol. Why? Because we've been redeemed from our sins. We've been set free from the power of sin, which is death. Redemption is how we become sons of Elohim, thus obtaining an eternal inheritance. Again, this theme of Jubilee, the return of property. Note the language, the return of property to its rightful owner. And this would then tie into the covenant with Abraham, that his seed will become a multitude of nations, and to his seed, he has an allocated promised land, which would go from the River Nile right through to the great river Euphrates, another whole topic for another day. We saw that the good news, the gospel of the fulfillment of the eschatological Jubilee is actually to go to the scattered house of Israel. This message of good news goes to the house of Israel, but the house of Israel has been scattered to all the nations. Thus, when the message goes out, all of the nations as well will hear the same message, and they end up being presented with a choice. What is this good news that I hear? Do I wish to be a part of what Elohim would call his house and his people? And so this is why Paul would say, oh, the depths and magnitude of the wisdom of Elohim. Who can see how he sees, And this is just one of the many beautiful aspects of this great plan of redemption, which he instituted really before the creation. Being grafted in to the house. So this is how the nations would become part of the commonwealth of the house of Israel. It actually comes by having the same faith as that of Abraham. Abraham believed, and it was accounted to him for righteousness. And we saw how the same good news that has been proclaimed to us was proclaimed not only to those at Mount Sinai, but it was also proclaimed to Abraham. And so by having the faith of Abraham, those that are not physical Israel, if you want to call it that, they can actually become grafted in, thus becoming sharers in the covenants of promise through faith in Messiah. Isn't that good news? Yah does not disqualify anybody. And we finish with this passage in Peter. And if you call on him as Father who judges impartially according to each one's deeds, conduct yourselves with fear throughout the time of your exile, knowing that you were ransomed or released from the futile ways inherited from your forefathers. And so again, what have we been redeemed from? What have we been ransomed from? The Greek word there, lutro, which means really to release on receipt of ransom, to redeem, to liberate. Again, this Jubilee language and how this word is interconnected with Hebrew words such as doror and yovel, Jubilee, liberation. What were we redeemed or ransomed by? Not with perishable things such as silver or gold. We'll get into that today. But with the precious blood of Messiah, like that of a lamb without blemish or spot. Remember, the Torah says that the English will say that the life is in the blood. But when you look at the Hebrew, it says that the soul is in the blood. And this connects us directly to Isaiah 53, where it says the suffering servant would give his soul as an atonement, as a redemption for the souls of many. And so this is the mechanism by which our soul is redeemed from our futile ways, from our sinful behaviors and the power of sin, which is death. And I asked the question, was this exile an earthly exile? Or was this actually pointing to a much deeper thing? You know, we see how the house of Israel was scattered and put into physical bondage and physical exile, but is that where the picture stops? Or is that in of itself pointing to a greater, weightier matter? I'm going to start off by saying I believe it is, pointing to something far greater. People have probably started to connect some of the dots on this. So let's jump into it. Why is this important for us to know? Because again, this was the message that was proclaimed at the fulfillment of Shavuot almost 2,000 years ago. And we focus a lot on the fall appointed times. We do, understandably so, because we believe that we are here, you know, on the great prophetic timeline, awaiting the fulfillment of the fall appointed times. But they haven't been fulfilled yet, which means that though we're coming to the end of a season, that season is what was proclaimed at the fulfillment of the spring appointed times almost 2,000 years ago. And so this is why it's important for us to understand these things that are given to us in the Torah and the prophets and the writings and the witness of those prophecies that were given to us by the early assemblies in the first century. So we started off the series with this counting of days, this counting of the Omer. We saw that it's a proclamation, a recounting, that this ties into the good news. And we looked into what the good news was and how deep the good news really goes. Curtis often says that Yah has not asked us to do anything that he hasn't done himself at a much higher and greater level. Okay? Elohim has asked us to count many things, counting days, recounting his wonders. If Elohim is true to his word, that means he has his own version of it. He's not asking us to do anything that he hasn't done himself. Well, let me ask you this question. Did you know that Elohim counts as well? Elohim counts. He really isn't asking us to do anything that he isn't already doing and has done. And believe me, his version is far greater than we could even imagine. Remember where we started off the series, that part of the covenant with Abraham is that his seed would become a multitude of nations as numerous as the stars. And he says to Abraham, count the stars if you can. So bear that in mind as we go as to what is it that Elohim counts? Because Elohim counts, believe it or not. David wrote this psalm. We're going to look at a psalm. He wrote this psalm regarding when the Philistines seized him in Gath. And it's the account where he feigned madness. And by feigning madness, they actually ended up letting him go, saying, oh, well, he's not a threat. And so this is the context of David writing this psalm, right? He's got those seeking to do him ill will. Psalm 56, be gracious to me, O Elohim, for man tramples on me. All day long an attacker oppresses me. My enemies trample on me all day long, for many attack me proudly. When I am afraid, I put my trust in you. In Elohim, whose word I praise, in Elohim I trust, I shall not be afraid. What can flesh do to me? I love what Messiah would say, that fear not those who can harm the body, but fear him who can put the body and soul in Gehenna, right? What can flesh do to me? All day long, they twist my words. All their thoughts are against me for evil. They stir up strife, they lurk. They watch my steps as they have waited for my life. So this is the context. David is between a rock and a hard place, okay? But he goes on to say this: for their crime will they escape. In wrath cast down the peoples, O Elohim. I believe this is an allusion to the fall appointed times, the wrath of Elohim. And look at what David goes on to say next. You have kept count of my wanderings. Put my tears in your bottle. Are they not in your book? You have kept count of my wanderings. Put my tears in your bottle. Are they not in your book? The word here for Elohim counting is this word that springboarded the whole series, Sephar. So Elohim is counting something. And David is saying the thing that Elohim is counting are David's wanderings. Okay. Now, the word for wanderings is nud in the Hebrew. It actually means exile. The wanderings of an aimless fugitive. Think of vagabond, someone who doesn't have a home. Okay. And so David he's in this fugitive state in the shadow picture. Now, what's really interesting, there's actually some Hebrew wordplay going on in this verse. You've put my tears in your bottle. The word for bottle is nud, but it's spelled ever so slightly differently. So there's actually a word play between the wanderings of someone in exile, the wanderings of a vagabond, as it were, this word nud, and it's been word played with the word bottle. They sound exactly the same in Hebrew, nud. The word for bottle, to be more specific, is a skin or leather bag for fluids. Bottles in the ancient times were leather bags made of animal skin. Hold that thought in the back of your head. Are they not written in your book? The word for book there is sefer. More accurately, it would be a scroll. Okay, a letter of instruction, a written order, a commission, a request. Look at this, a written decree, a legal document. Wow, a certificate of divorce. This means that you could also link this to a ketubah, a sefer, which would have a covenant between a bride and groom. When you understand that a marriage has a legal aspect to it in the sense of, Elohim bringing two people and making them one, but there's legal documents associated with marriage, that of the ketubah or the covenant. And if things go south, the certificate of divorce to annul it. A deed of purchase. Interesting. What have we been purchased by? Indictment, sign, book of prophecies. Look at this. Genealogical register. A genealogy. Think a seed line that has been recorded, accurately inscribed, okay? A law book. And so David is saying, you, Elohim, have kept count of all my wanderings in exile. You've put my tears in your skin bag, in your leather bag. Are they not in your book? Can you see the word plays going on in the Hebrew? And when you actually read the Hebrew verse, there's this really nice rhythmical, poetic kind of sound to it. And you can hear this wordplay between safar and sefer. You can hear the wordplay between nud and nud, okay? I believe that David is displaying an ancient understanding of a much greater plan of redemption here. Because remember that, okay, David was being held captive by the Philistines, but he was king at the time as well. He had a home. And so why is David saying his wanderings, his exiles? David thought he was in exile. and he's shedding many tears. Interesting. Now, I said, keep in the back of your mind that Elohim's bottle is a skin or leather bag for fluids. Let's go to Genesis chapter 3. This is right after the fall. Yah Elohim made for Adam and for his wife garments of skin and clothed them. The word there for skin is the word or, which means skin of men or the hide of animals, the skin. Do you see the connection that I'm trying to make here? David is saying he's in exile, and Elohim's counting his tears, his wanderings, and putting his tears in his bottle, in his bag of skin. And here we see that Yah Elohim is making garments of skin for Adam and Eve, and for as part of being in a fallen state. Now, it can mean he gave them tunics, but in a Q&A in this series a few parts ago, I made the inference, is there a deeper understanding that actually he put Adam and Eve in skin? Something happened with the fall of man in going from a glorified state to a fallen state. Now, what's really interesting is that the word or, garments of skin, hide of animals, if you change the ayin and replace it with an aleph, you get the word or, which sounds exactly the same, which means light, actually. Go back to the Q&A in, I forget which part it was, but we had a bit of a discussion on this and what was actually going on with the nature of man in going from glorified to fallen, and how this could relate with light and blood, okay? Are we seeing something? I believe this is the first record of exile written. Let's keep reading. Then Yah Elohim said, behold, the man has become like one of us in knowing good and evil. Now lest he reach out his hand and also take of the tree of life and eat and live forever. Therefore Yah Elohim sent him out from the Garden of Eden to work the ground from which he was taken. He drove out the man. And at the east of the Garden of Eden, he placed the cherubim and a flaming sword that turned every way to guard the way to the tree of life. And so we see with the fall of man that man is driven or exiled eastward, which becomes a parallel for where the scattered houses of Israel would be scattered to eastward, taken into Assyria and then taken into Babylon, respectively. And so in the first record of exile, here's what I want to suggest. I made the point in the Q&A that before the fall, was man clothed and have light going through his veins? And that as part of the fall, that light became blood and hence flesh and blood. It's a whole other way of thinking, but this is the first record of exile that we have. And man is becoming clothed in skin. And I want to link that back now to what King David was saying. You have kept count of my exile, my wanderings. You've put my tears in your bag of skin. Are they not in your book, in your genealogical register, in your ketubah, in your covenant? I believe that David is displaying an understanding of what was written right here, where the exile of mankind first began. They were exiled from the garden. This is when the exile began. And as part of this exile, I don't know about you, but I've shed many tears because of my fallen state and the captivity associated therewith. And David is saying that, worry not, Elohim is keeping count. He is counting, believe me. Do you have faith in that? So what does this have to do with the heavenly census? Because that's what we've titled the series. What does this have to do? Well, okay. To understand the heavenly census, you need to understand the shadow picture of it, the earthly census. This is in the Torah regarding, it's in Exodus 30, regarding the census of the house of Israel in the wilderness while they were wandering. This is given to us as part of Moshe going up Mount Sinai and receiving the covenant. Exodus 30 says, when you take the census of the people of Israel, then each shall give a ransom for his life to Yah when you number them, that there may be no plague among them when you number them. Now, when you look at the Hebrew and the Greek, so the Hebrew, obviously, but then in the Septuagint, which gives you the Greek equivalent, the word for ransom here is actually the word kofer. Price of life, ransom, redemption price. Kofer comes from the word kafar, which is commonly used for atonement. When a priest sprinkled something with blood, it gave atonement for something. And the word kafar also means to cover with pitch. The Ark of Noah was covered with pitch. It was covered. And so the word for ransom here is actually, then each shall give an atonement for his life. The word for life is actually nefesh, for his soul. And so the earthly census is telling you, when you take the census of the house of Israel, each of them shall give an atonement for his soul to Yah. We're back to the great conundrum that we covered last week. Can man provide an atonement and a ransom for his nefesh? He cannot. The price for his nefesh is great. Who can pay it, right? So we've covered that. Can you see how the census of the house of Israel is pointing to this conundrum, or so-called conundrum? Because the Torah is saying that man will give an atonement for his soul. Well, here's the problem. We can't. Who can atone for our souls? Well, we've been promised through the Torah, the prophets, and the writings that Yah will provide the atonement. He will provide the ransom and the redemption of our nefesh. And to do that, he would have to take on the seed of man. Now, this is a requirement to be part of the house of Israel, to be written in the book, so to speak. This is the earthly census. Now, think of the heavenly census. How is it that we are grafted into the house of Israel? Through the faith of Abraham in Messiah, who does provide the atonement, the ransom for our nefesh. Thus, we can become part of the spiritual house of Israel. Do you see what's going on here? And it's right there in the Torah. The Greek word there for kofer is lutron. Again, we saw this being used within Jubilee language, both in the Septuagint, but also in what we would call the New Testament. Each one who is numbered in the census shall give this, a half shekel according to the shekel of the sanctuary. The shekel is 20 gerahs. Half a shekel is an offering to Yah. You shall take the atonement money from the people of Israel and give it for the service of the tent of meeting. Now, the word for atonement money in Hebrew is kesef hakipporim. It's literally the silver of atonements. That's what it's saying in the Hebrew. Remember that the Jubilee was announced on Yom HaKippurim, or Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonements. Now, what did we read of in Peter regarding our exile? That we have not been redeemed by that which is perishable, gold or silver. What is Peter referencing? I believe he's referencing the census of the house of Israel. Because the earthly census, the shadow picture, is telling you that you paid a half shekel of silver to give atonement for your nefesh. But we know from the book of Hebrews and from Peter that gold and silver and the blood of animals cannot provide atonement for our nefesh. Only the blood of Messiah can do that. What's really interesting is that the price of atonement is for the service of the tent of meeting. Isn't that amazing? that it may bring the people of Israel, look at this, to remembrance before Yah, so as to make atonement for your lives, for your nefesh. And so if we want to understand the heavenly census, we have to understand the earthly census. And the earthly census is pointing us to this conundrum. You cannot atone for your soul, especially not with silver or gold. So what is the weightier shadow picture? This is telling you that you need to have the faith of Abraham in the atoning work of Messiah to be grafted and be part of the census of the house of Israel at a cosmic level. Does that make sense, everyone? Oh my goodness. I love this. Let's look at the Hebrew. So we looked at this verse, when you take the census of the people of Israel, when you number them, what I've highlighted in yellow is actually, this is the Hebrew here for what's highlighted in yellow. It says, Ki tisa et rosh b'nei Yisrael lifkudehem. Do you know what that says in English when you translate it rather literally? When you lift up the head of the sons of Israel to visit them. Let me put that up for you. When you lift up the head of the sons of Israel to visit them, or in the day of their visitation, would be a good translation. When you lift up the head of the sons of Israel in their visitation is what it's saying. Okay? And so you have this idea of atonement, kofer, for the nefesh. And the Greek word lutron was also a Greek equivalent for the word gaal in Hebrew, to redeem. Okay? So when you lift up the head of the sons of Israel in their visitation to give redemption for their souls, is what the Torah is actually saying. Does that make maybe some of Messiah's words come to your mind? Let me help you out here. In Luke 21:28, this is in context of the disciples saying, what will be the signs of your coming and of the end of the age? Yeshua lists a load of things, which I believe is pointing to the fulfillment of the fall appointed times, of which the Jubilee, the redemption process, is an intrinsic part of it. He says this, now when these things begin to take place, i.e., when prophecy of the fall appointed times begins to be fulfilled, straighten up and look at this, raise your heads, lift up your heads, because what? Your redemption is drawing near. The word for redemption there in the Greek is apolutrosis. What we've just read in the Torah regarding the census, the ransom, the redemption price in the Greek was the lutron. I believe when Yeshua is saying, when you see these things take place, lift up your heads, for your redemption draweth nigh. It's right there in the census of the house of Israel. When you lift up the head of the sons of Israel in their visitation. What visitation? The visitation from the king to be a part of the house of Israel. Yeshua is not plucking up new ideas. He's actually giving you understanding and deeper insight in what was written in the Torah and the prophets. All of this language is house of Israel and census language. Do you see now how maybe this is all factoring into a heavenly census of the house of Israel? Oh, we're not done yet. We're not done yet. Believe me. Let's keep going. Remember that Elohim counts. In Malachi 3:16 through to 18, then those who feared Yah spoke with one another. Yah paid attention and heard them. They were brought to remembrance. And a book, a sefer of remembrance, was written before him of those who feared Yah and esteemed his name. Now, the context of this is within the house of Israel at the time. This is within a believer context, which is telling you that within the house, there are those who do fear him and those who do not. And we'll look at those who do not next week. They shall be mine. Who's the they here? It's those who fear Yah and esteem his name. It's a conditional statement. It says Yah of hosts, in the day when I make up my treasured possession. We've done a whole series on the treasured possession and how this points to the bride of Messiah. And I will spare them. The treasured possession, those who fear him. He doesn't say those who do not. This is conditional here, as a man spares his son who serves him. Then once more you shall see the distinction between the righteous and the wicked, between the one who serves Elohim and the one who does not serve him. And that statement is within the house. Okay? Right now, this is what we're seeing. It's hard to distinguish, if you lack discernment, who in the house truly fears Yah and who doesn't. Because many people praise him with their lips, but keep their hearts far from him. Yah is saying that in the day when he makes up his treasured possession, which I believe is the day of the bridal selection, which is part of the fall appointed times, you will see that difference. It will be loud and clear. It will be a case of, that's my bride. It will be clear. And Yah's writing this book. He's counting. Remember what David said. He's counting the many exiles, the many wanderings, and putting his tears in his bottle. It's all written. The deeds by which we have done. We will be judged for our deeds, as Paul says. And it's our deeds that will be the marker of whether we fear him or not. Elohim's tally. Again, Elohim counts. Psalm 87. Oh, okay. On the holy mount stands the city he founded. Yah loves the gates of Zion more than all the dwelling places of Jacob. Glorious things of you are spoken, O city of Elohim, Selah. Now we know that this is speaking of the new Jerusalem, the heavenly Jerusalem. It's written right there in the Psalms. It's not a new thing. Let's keep going. Among those who know me, I mention Rahab and Babylon. Behold, Philistia and Tyre with Cush. This one was born there, they say. So it's speaking of people being born in certain nations. And of Zion, the city of Elohim, it shall be said, this one and that one were born in her. For the Most High himself will establish her. Yah records, he counts Safar in the register of the peoples. This one was born there, Selah. The psalmist is saying that Yah is keeping a tally of who is born in the new heavenly Jerusalem. We are not born from what is corruptible, but we are born again through the incorruptible blood of Messiah, redeemed from sin unto death. Our citizenship is not. Do you hear where the writers of the Brit are getting certain ideas from? Yah is keeping a record, a book of remembrance of who is born in Zion. Here's the thing, though. I was born in France. Or is this pointing to something greater? Are we born of Zion? Oh, it gets deep. When did this birth occur? Oh, boy. Sojourners on earth. Let's look at Hebrews 11. By faith, Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to a place that he was to receive as an inheritance. We're back to the covenant. And he went out not knowing where he was going. By faith, he went to live in the land of promise, as in a foreign land, living in tents with Isaac and Jacob, heirs with him of the same promise. But look at this. He was looking forward to the city that has foundations, whose designer and builder is Elohim. Do you think that Abraham understood that Yah's keeping a tally? Was Abraham born in Zion? Do you see what's going on? And Yah is counting this. He's recording it in his book. By faith, Sarah herself received power to conceive seed, the promised seed, even when she was past the age, since she considered him faithful who had promised. Therefore, from one man, in him as good as dead, were born descendants as many as the stars of heaven and as many as the innumerable grains of sand by the seashore, i.e., you cannot count them. But Elohim can. He counts them all. He writes them in his book. This one and that one was born in her, in Zion. It continues. These all died in faith, not having received the things promised. They didn't receive it in their lifetime. But having seen them and greeted them from afar, and having acknowledged that they were strangers and exiles on earth. The time domain was their time of exile. They knew that. David knew that. This is why he would say, though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death. That's a time domain statement. For people who speak thus, make it clear that they are seeking a homeland. They did not belong on earth. They belonged in what was heavenly. If they had been thinking of that which they had gone out from, they would have had opportunity to return. They could have returned back to Babylon, because that's where Abraham came from Chaldea. He could have gone back. But as it is, they desire a better, that is a heavenly one, a heavenly homeland. Therefore, Elohim is not ashamed to be called their Elohim, for he has prepared for them a city. One that was written of all the way back in Psalms. There's a census going on, and it's a heavenly one. Maybe this good news has something to do with it. Hebrews 13, 12 to 14. So Yeshua also suffered outside the gate in order to sanctify the people through his own blood, the redemption from the power of sin and death. Therefore, let us go to him outside the camp, come follow him, and bear the reproach he endured. For here we have no lasting city, but we seek the city that is to come. And we have record of this in the book of Revelation, in the revelation of our King and his great plan of redemption. Are people starting to realize that a lot of the things written in the Brit are actually not new? They're just giving you a deeper understanding of what was written in the Torah, prophets, and writings. Philippians 3:17 to 21, brothers, now, look at what Paul starts this off with. Join in imitating me and keep your eyes on those who walk according to the example you have in us. This is discipleship language. So the context is that of true biblical discipleship. And look at what he goes on to say. For many of whom I have often told you and now tell you, even with tears, walk as enemies of the cross of Messiah. These are those within the body. And what's that conditional statement? They don't have biblical discipleship in their life. Again, think Malachi, what we read. Those in the house, there are those that do fear Yah and those that do not. And a book of remembrance is being written about it. Their end is their destruction. Their God is their stomach. So the earthly, fleshly, temporal things are what they esteem highly. and they glory in their shame with minds set on earthly things, not heavenly. And these are people in the body. But our citizenship is in heaven. And from it, we await a Savior, the Master Yeshua Messiah, who will transform our lowly body to be like his glorious body by the power that enables him even to subject all things to himself. And we know that our bodies becoming incorruptible is because of the mechanism of redemption from Sheol, this great jubilee of sins, okay? Let's continue with Elohim's tally. We looked at this earlier. Of Zion it shall be said, this one and that one were born in her. For the Most High himself will establish her. Yah records in the register of the peoples, this one was born in there, Salah. By the way, this understanding, especially coupled with what we've just read in Philippians 3, is why you see in the book of Revelation, some people are allowed to enter through the gates of the New Jerusalem and some are not. Is because of what Paul is saying right there. Those that cannot enter into the gates, their minds are set on earthly things. They're not heavenly minded. So Elohim counts. He's writing a register, a book. He's writing this accurately, and he's counting the tears of his people who are in exile in this time domain. This means that the exile of the house of Israel regarding, the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom is actually pointing to the greater exile of the fallen state. That's the weightier picture here. And the New Jerusalem, this heavenly census, is intrinsically tied to it. Can it be said of us that we were born in her, i.e., in Zion? Luke 10, verses 17 to 20. The 72, this is Yeshua's disciples. There were 72 at one stage, got weeded down to 12. They returned with joy, saying, Master, even the demons are subject to us in your name. And he said to them, I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. Behold, I have given you authority to tread on serpents and scorpions and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall hurt you. I believe there's an allusion here to the locusts of Revelation, different topic. Nevertheless, do not rejoice in this, that the spirits are subject to you, but rejoice that your names are written in heaven. He's saying that's what you ought to be rejoicing in. Are your names written in heaven, i.e., are you born of Zion? Are you in the book, in the register of the heavenly house of Israel? And that is through faith in Messiah, like Abraham. Here's the question: did all of the 72, quote unquote, make it? I'm not talking salvation here. I'm not talking salvation. I'm talking intimacy. We know that the 12 remained, 11, right? Because Judas would fall by the wayside and fall on his own sword. But this is not a salvational question, okay? I'll say it plainly. I believe this is a bridal question. We've taught many times how not all of those in the house of faith will be deemed to be part of the bride of Messiah. That's very clear. That's very clear. Did all of the 72 make it? No. And I'm talking within a bridal context here. And so this means that those who didn't, quote unquote, make it to the bridal status, they had authority over demons. They had authority to do miracles. But Yeshua is saying, don't rejoice in that. Rejoice that your names are written in heaven. Oh, rejoice that you are my bride, I believe is what he's saying. Let's keep going. What is his eternal desire? Psalm 147, verses 1 to 5. Praise Yah, for it is good to sing praises to our Elohim, for it is pleasant, and a song of praise is fitting. Yah builds up Jerusalem. He gathers the outcasts of Israel. This is full Moedim language. Now think of it within the greater context of exile into the time domain and the new Jerusalem, or the renewed Jerusalem. He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. Now look at this. Listen to this carefully. He determines the number of stars. He gives to all of them their names. What did Yeshua just say? Rejoice that your names are written in heaven. What's in the heavens in the shadow picture? The stars. The word for Yah okay, first, the number of stars. The word for number is mispar, which the root word is safar, to count. What is it that you count? You count numbers, hence why the two words are very similar. The word for Yah determining that number is the word manna. Manna. Takes us right back to where we began. He manners the mispar of the stars. The word manna, as we're going to see, was used interchangeably with safar as well. So this is now, think of the question, man who? Who is he? What is it? I've said of the bread from heaven. We're right back there. Great is our master and abundant in power. His understanding is beyond measure. In the Hebrew, it literally says that his understanding, the word there is tevunah, which comes from, it's actually his discernment, almost. Understanding, discernment, but it says ein mispar. It says there is no number to his understanding. That's the literal Hebrew. His understanding is without number. You cannot count the mind of Elohim, essentially. I'm going to give a little breadcrumb here. Paul says something very interesting in Corinthians, 2 Corinthians. He says, who shall give counsel to Elohim? Who shall tell him? But we have the mind of Messiah. It says that the spirit of Elohim is unsearchable, but we have the mind of Messiah. I'll leave that there. Chew on that. What will Yah truly give his bride? What level of intimacy will she be granted? This is why I believe Paul says, eye has not seen and ear has not heard what Yah has in store, but there's a conditional statement there. For those that love him. This is bridal language. Okay, so Yah determines, he manas the number of the stars. He gives the stars names. Yeshua says, rejoice that your names be written in heaven. Let's keep going. Let's go back to the covenant of promise given to Abraham. Yah says to Abraham in Genesis 13:16, I will make your seed as the dust of the earth, so that if one can manna the dust of the earth, your seed also can be counted. Manna. This is the same word that is said of Elohim, that he determines the number of stars. And then we saw in Genesis 15:5, he brought Abram outside and said, look toward heaven and safar, number the stars if you are able to number them, Sephar. So we see Manah and Sephar being used interchangeably. He said to him, so shall your seed be. The seed will be like the number of the stars of heaven. Pray that your name is written in the heavens. Yah determines the number of stars. He can count them. We can't. But he can. He's written a book about it. Not only that, he has counted our tears while we're in exile, and he's put them in his leather bag. You could argue this body right now is the leather bag. This gives a whole interesting analogy as well of Yeshua coming in the flesh and taking on the sin and iniquities of the world upon him. Those sins were counted. He counted those tears. He took them on. Oh, it's deep. Oh, it's deep. Daniel 12, this is the home run here. At that time, it's speaking literally of the resurrection, as we'll see, shall arise Michael, the great prince who has charge of your people. And there shall be a time of trouble such as there has never been since there was a nation till that time, i.e. the great tribulation, the 1260 days. But at that time, at the end of this great tribulation, your people, Daniel's people, shall be delivered, redeemed, set free from what? Everyone whose name shall be found written in the Sefer, in the book. Whose book? The book that Elohim is writing. The book of life. And many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake. Resurrection. Some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. This doesn't say the lake of fire. This says to everlasting shame and contempt. Think rewards, losses. Oh, there's going to be a resurrection, a great salvation. But there's going to be part of this book is the difference between who fears and serves him and who doesn't. In the day that he will make his treasured possession. Again, the 72 had authority over the demons. They served. They were of the house. But Yeshua is saying, are all of your names written in heaven? Again, parable of the talents. You had 2 good servants, 1 wicked, lazy servant. For that wicked, lazy servant to be judged implies he's been resurrected. And now look at this. This is a conditional statement. Those who are wise. Go look at Proverbs as to how one acquires wisdom. Instruction and discipleship is a key integral part of acquiring wisdom. Those who are wise shall shine like the brightness of the sky above, and those who turn many to righteousness, think the good servants, the industrious servants who multiplied like the stars forever and ever. The stars of heaven, I believe, is pointing to a bridal statement. Their names are written in heaven. This is one of the promises to the overcomer in the book of Revelation. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the assemblies. To the one who overcomes, I will give some of the hidden manna, and I will give him a white stone with a new name written on the stone that no one knows except the one who receives it. What did we read of in Psalms? He determines the number of stars. He gives them all names. Oh, I'm struggling to contain myself. I hope people are connecting this. I really hope they are. Okay, let's get deep. Remember that we mentioned that King David had this ancient perspective on the time domain itself, that the time domain is the great exile, which we're all part of. This is one of my favorite Psalms, favorite passages in scripture, Psalm 139. We're going to read from verse 13 and read about 6 or 7 verses. And we're going to break each one down a bit because, boy, are they rich. They are so rich. And they're the kind of verses that go, hang on, this doesn't line up with what I've been taught by Mystery Babylon. Okay, so these may cause some knee-jerk reactions. It's okay. Our fathers inherited lies, but let's just take scripture at face value, okay? For you formed my inward parts. The word there for inward parts in the Hebrew would be kidneys, okay? You formed my kidneys. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. It doesn't say that you formed my inward parts in the Hebrew. It says the word kana. Kana means to get, to acquire, to create, to buy, to possess. Look at this, of Elohim redeeming his people. Redeeming his people. It's actually a redemption. Kana is what you would use when you're buying something from a vendor as well. You purchased my inward parts. The kidneys is quite often synonymous with the heart, mind, and soul as well in Hebrew when you do your digging on it. You purchased, you redeemed my inward parts, my heart, my soul. The word for knitted me together in my mother's womb is really interesting. It's the word sachach. It's got a dual meaning, okay? It can mean to knit together, but it's actually to weave. And the idea is that you're weaving a covering. Its primary meaning is to hedge, to fence about, to shut, to block, overshadow, to screen. And so the idea of weaving comes because how did you weave a cover? You weaved it, whether it be of branch or whether it be of fabric, okay? So it's a dual meaning. You weaved me, you covered me, you sheltered me together in my mother's womb. What's really interesting, the word sachach, if you drop off the last letter, you get the word soch, which is the masculine form of sukkah. Tabernacle. Something that hedged you in, that protected you, that was woven together. It's deep. You purchased my inward parts. You hedged me with your such, with your sukkah. Thus you entwined me together in my mother's womb. That's accurate there. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. The word there for wonderfully made is palah. Now, this verse 14, is actually a little difficult to translate. The word made here, I've italicized it. It's not actually in the Hebrew. Literally, when you read the Hebrew here, it says, I praise you, for I am fearful or reverent, and I am wonderful. I am palah, is what David is saying. Think of Messiah in you. Think of wonder in you. Wonderful are your works. My soul knows it very well. My soul knows it very well. When you look at the Hebrew, because of the vowel pointings, you can actually, if you take the vowel pointings away, it can actually say, you know my soul very well. So there's actually a double way of translating this. It can be, my soul knows it very well. It can also be, you know my soul very well. And I think both credible translations, especially with some of the verses we're going to see. Does Yah know our soul, our inward parts very well? Well, of course. He ransomed our souls, and he hedged and knitted us together in our mother's womb. And as a result of that, it could be that I am reverent and wonderful. Because whose image are we created in? Oh boy. Oh, it's deep. Oh, it's deep. Let's keep going. My frame was not hidden from you. The word for frame is utsem. It actually means power. And by the word power or might comes from the idea that utsem is actually your bones. So when it's saying my frame, the Hebrew is literally saying my bones were not hidden from you. And bones are thought of as what hold you, like they give you your power, your strength. So that's why it means power. My frame, my bones were not hidden from you. Look at this. When I was being made in secret, the Hebrew says beseter here, in secret. This could be easily translated as when I was shaped or made in the secret place. Go do some digging on the secret place of Elohim. This is pointing, let me phrase it this way. The Holy of Holies is the shadow picture of the secret place of Elohim. That's where we were made. Sounds a bit different than a garden. Look at this, intricately woven in the depths of the earth. Intricately woven in the depths of the earth. I'm going to ask a question for you guys to chew the cud on. In the Hebrew mindset, what are the depths of the earth? Because David has an understanding, we were woven there. This is a knee-jerk statement, okay? This is a big knee-jerk. It says what it says. Your eyes saw my unformed substance. The word for unformed substance is a really hard word to translate because it's only used once in the scriptures. The word there is golem. And what people think it means is a wrapped and unformed mass, i.e. the embryo, a formless mass. Look at this, an incomplete vessel. They get this understanding because in Aramaic, which is a sister language to the Hebrew, you have the word golma, which means a vessel not yet perfected, substance yet being unperfect. David is saying Yah's eyes saw his substance that wasn't yet perfected. Is this what this exile is all about? To perfect his people. Curtis has asked the question before, what is it that Adam and Eve did not have even in a glorified state? Were they a perfected vessel, even in a glorified state? Oh, apparently King David knew this. David is saying this physical thing that we call the time domain, life, existence, this is not where we were formed. Apparently, we were made in the secret place of Elohim, in the depths of the earth. Again, what does that mean, Hebraically speaking? In your book, your Sefer, were written, every one of them, the days that were formed for me, when as yet there was none of them. My time in the time domain was set out already. You know, this is interesting because Yah says your days are numbered. Does he not? He says it to the adversary. He's the one who decides life and death. Our days are numbered. Why? They're written in his book. We get free will within that time frame, but our days are numbered. Let's keep going. How precious to me are your thoughts, O Elohim. How vast is the sum of them. The word for precious, yakar, to be esteemed, prized, highly valuable, precious, costly, appraised. His thoughts towards us are precious. You can read that two ways, that David is in awe of the fact that Elohim thinks of him. The other way you can read it is that Elohim thinks of us as precious in his eyes, costly, appraised. This goes back to when David says, I am fearfully and wonderful. Does Yah view his bride as precious? In fact, the psalmist says precious is the death of his set apart ones in his eyes. How vast is the sum of them? The word there, vast, is atzam. This is the root word for otsem that we read earlier. My frame, my bones were not hidden from you. So there's actually wordplay between my frame, my bones were not hidden from you, and how vast are the precious thoughts of Elohim towards us. Look, this is why Yah says, I have loved you with an everlasting love. You are inscribed on the palm of my hands. If I would count them, so far, they are more than the sand. Look at that. What else is more than the sand of the sea? The seed of Abraham. I awake and I am still with you. This is resurrection language, I believe. I am still with you. That means he was with us some time before. Are people appreciating that there was an understanding the ancients had? And maybe King David understood that what we called life is actually an exile. And this exile has been tallied in Elohim's book. And this is what we're being set free from. This is what we're being redeemed from. Our days were formed. We read this earlier. My frame was not hidden from you when I was being made in the secret place, intricately woven in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my substance not yet perfected. David is saying that our substance, our inward parts, were not perfected before we were put into this exile. Could it be that this exile is the very thing that perfects us? Oh, wait, wasn't Messiah perfected through suffering? Is Messiah asking, come follow me? When was that statement first made? I put here the date, well, it's written here, the days that were formed for me, formed. Formed is a very interesting word, yetzar. We're going to take this, and this word is going to be an important word for next week, okay, when we conclude the series. The word yetzar means to mold into a form as a potter. To form, fashion, frame of human activity, of divine activity, of creation, of original creation, of individuals at conception. So this is what Psalm is speaking of here, and arguably before, is the word that was used of Israel, the house of Israel being formed. Look at this, to preordain, to predetermine, to plan divine purpose of a situation. Isn't that similar to language that Paul used in last week's teaching? That we were preordained to be part of the house of Israel through faith in the blood of Messiah, which grants us redemption from the Jubilee or release of sins. Paul was using this eternal language. Here's what's really interesting. The word yitzar has a dual meaning: to press, to squeeze, to be narrow, to be distressed, to be in distress, to be cramped, narrow. Think tribulation. Crushing. Narrow is the gate to life. What did we just read? That David understood that before being in the exile of the time domain, his inner substance was not yet perfected. Yet his days were formed. They were predetermined, and that through this forming would be distress, squeezing, tribulation. Could this be the very vehicle that perfects us? When you eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, you shall die. Yah Elohim formed the man of dust from the ground. It's the same word. And breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became what? A living soul. The very thing that would become and need circumcision of the heart. And Yah Elohim planted a garden in Eden in the east, and there he put the man whom he had formed. So he did the molding as a potter, but within this forming is this idea that you're going to experience distress. You're going to experience crushing. You might need this to perfect you. Jeremiah 1:4-5. Now the word of Yah came to me saying, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before I formed you. Well, David's saying, your eyes saw my not yet perfected substance. And before you were born, I consecrated you. I set you apart. I appointed you a prophet to the nations. Jeremiah's days were numbered. His days were formed before there were even any yet. And they were written in Yah's book. Did Jeremiah experience distress, calamity? Oh boy, he did. He's not called the weeping prophet for no reason. Isaiah 43. But now thus says Yah, he who created you, O Jacob, O Israel, he who formed you, O Israel, fear not, for I have redeemed you. The word there, Gaal and Lutron, is Greek equivalent. I've redeemed you, Jubilee language. I have called you by name. You are mine. This bridal language. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. When did we all pass through the waters? When we were knitted in our mother's wombs? I believe Yah. I believe this is what he's referencing here. When you pass through the womb into the time domain, I will be with you. In your time of exile, I will count your tears. Are they not written in my book? And through the rivers, they shall not overwhelm you. When you walk through fire, you shall not be burnt, and the flame shall not consume you. What's guarding the way to the tree of life right now? Flaming sword. How do we return there? For I am Yah, your Elohim, the Holy One of Israel, your Savior. I give Egypt as your kofer, as your atonement. The word ransom there. Cush and Seba in exchange for you. Because you are precious in my eyes. This is the echo of the book, what we just read in Psalms. And honored. The word there is kavod, which is where the word glory, kavod, comes from. He's saying you are precious and of glory. And I love you. I give men in return for you, peoples in exchange for your nefesh. Fear not, for I am with you. I will bring your seed from the east, and from the west I will gather you. I will say to the north, give up, and to the south, do not withhold. Bring my sons from afar, and my daughters from the end of the earth. Everyone who is called by my name, whom I created for my glory, whom I formed and made. Ask yourself when you are speaking this. Remember not the former things, nor consider the things of old. The word there for former things, rishon. And the form, like, it means the former. Like, think before creation. Consider not the things of old. The word there is kadmoni in singular, kadmoniot in plural. These are the things of Kedem. Again, he's saying, remember not. You do not remember these things. You do not consider these things. Maybe we should. Behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? I will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. The wild beasts will honor me, the jackals and the ostriches, for I give water in the wilderness, rivers in the desert, to give drink to my chosen people. I believe this is the river of life. The people whom I formed for myself, look at this, that they might safar my praise. We will declare his praise. He says in Isaiah 45, I form light and create darkness. Is the word there? He's literally speaking of creation. Right here, I form light and darkness. When was light created? When was light separated from the darkness? I make peace or shalom and create evil. I am Yah who does all these things. He created the knowledge of the tree of good and evil. He's saying, I created all of this whole time domain, this whole creation. I did it. Shower, O heavens, from above, and let the clouds rain down righteousness. Let the earth open. Well, what comes forth from the depths of the earth? If it's not those that are being resurrected, that salvation and righteousness may bear fruit. Let the earth cause them both to sprout. I, Yah, have created it. Now look at this. There's a warning here. Woe to him who strives with him who formed him. Yah's saying, I formed you. I plugged you in. He's saying, woe to him who strives with his maker. A pot among earthen pots. Know your place. Does the clay say to him who forms it, what are you making? Or your work has no handles? Woe to him who says to a father, what are you begetting? Or to a woman, what are you in labor? Thus says Yah, the Holy One of Israel, and the one who formed him. Ask of me things to come. Will you command me concerning my children and the work of my hands? I believe this is giving you an idea of something. This sin, this transgression that keeps making its way, the creation trying to usurp its creator. All of them are put to shame and confounded. The makers of idols go in confusion together. So the warning here in the context of the clay saying to the potter, what are you doing? It's being likened to idolatry here. You're putting yourself above that which created you. And so there's a warning to those that would do this. But Israel shall be saved by Yah with everlasting salvation. The word there, it says Teshuat Olamim. It's the word Yeshua, but beginning with a Tav instead of a Yod. Everlasting Teshua. Olam literally means for eternity. You shall not be put to shame or confounded to all eternity. Those of you who do not fall into this trap of saying, of being the clay, saying to the potter, what are you doing? For thus says Yah, who created the heavens, he is Elohim, who formed the earth and made it. Again, so he forms man, he forms the earth, he established it. He did not create it empty. He formed it to be inhabited. I am Yah, there is no other. In the English, it reads he didn't create it to be empty. We know he created the earth and he put all the animals and all the trees and then he put man in it. That's not what it's saying. It says he did not create it tohu. The word tohu, formlessness, confusion, unreality. This is the same word in Genesis 1. In the beginning, Yah created the heavens and the earth was what? Formless and void. It was tohu. Yah saying he didn't do that. He formed it to be inhabited. Are we beginning to grasp that this is way bigger than the time domain? He formed it to be inhabited. The word here for inhabited, yeshav, it means to sit down, to sit in judgment, to dwell. This is where the inhabited comes from, to remain, to settle. Look at this, to marry. But its primary meaning is actually to sit down in judgment. He didn't create it formless and void. He actually formed it for judgment. He didn't create it formless and void. He formed it. He fashioned it to be inhabited. This statement in yellow here, this is the Hebrew for it. It says, Lo tohu vera'ah. So this is bara, like in the beginning, Elohim created. This is telling you Genesis 1:1 and 1:2 was not Yah's doing. But where it says he formed it to be inhabited, it literally says, La shevet yetzara. The yetzara is this word here, yatzar, to form as a potter. It literally says for the shevet, le shevet. He formed it. What does this actually mean? Because you'll be asking yourself, well, yeshav doesn't sound anything like shevet. And this is where you have to understand that when you look at words in the Hebrew, in the Strongs, you're actually getting the root word. A root word will have a word family that springs forth from it, and it doesn't give you the word family. This is why and when you look into the word family, this is where you get the nuances come through that maybe the root doesn't capture. The word shevet. So this is the word yeshav here. This is the root word. From the word yeshav, you have a family of derivative words. This is how Hebrew works. You have the root, and from that root, you have a word family. And the root will give you the foundation of the meanings of that family, but the rest of the family of words will have interesting nuances to them that the root does not. The root, yeshav, means to sit, to dwell, to remain. Shevet is actually a derivative, a seat, a dwelling place. Hence, this is where you would dwell with your bride, with your spouse. Look at this, though. Shiva, to sojourn. Yah did not create the earth formless and void. He formed it for the shevet. We're in exile right now, are we not? Are we not sojourning? We're not Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, sojourners on the earth in exile. Moshav, a seat or assembly. Look at this. Toshav comes from this, the sojourner in your midst, which we all are on this earth. You mean he created the earth to be a place of sojourning for the purpose of perfecting our substance not yet perfected? that he would do this through forming as a potter, but with that would come crushing and squeezing and tribulation. Look at this, shevet. There are only 6 instances of this word used as a substantive rather than the infinitive of yeshav in the quote-unquote Old Testament. Look at this. Its basic meaning is expressed in its use as the seat on Solomon's throne. Literally, the text is the place of sitting, the place of judgment. What did we read with the covenant with David? The David's son of his seed. We saw that Solomon was the typology of Messiah. And so when it says back here that Yah didn't form it formless and void, he actually formed it for the shevet. The word here is literally, he formed it for the seat of judgment, as in Solomon's throne. It also refers to the seat or throne of violence. The idea, this abstract uses seat as a technical term for a judicial seat or throne. And that's the particular derivative that's used in Isaiah. It's actually got the nuance of the seat of judgment. You mean he formed it? What happens at the end of the 1,000 years? Do we not read of a great white seat of judgment? Who sits on that throne? That was the culmination. That's what it was for. Some of you will know as well. So shevet, we're looking at this one, Shin Beit Tav, okay? Funnily enough, if you take the vowel pointings away, you can get Shabbat from there, but other line of thinking. If you replace the Tav with a tet here, this letter here, you get Shevet. Sounds very similar. Shevet, Shevet. Rod, staff, branch, offshoot, shepherd staff, scepter, the rod of Elohim. It's a different word, but it sounds almost identical. By piecing all this together, I actually believe there's Hebrew wordplay going on. He formed it for the seat of judgment. Who sits on that seat of judgment with him? His rod, his bride. This plan of redemption is far greater. We're talking of a cosmic exile. And this cosmic exile serves the purpose. As part of it, he's counting our tears. The question is being asked, are you born in Zion? Are your names written in the spiritual census of the house of Israel? Are your names written in the stars? Let's find out. So you may be thinking to yourself, why are we here? It's deep, but we are here in exile. This is all one great big exile, and the scattering of the house of Israel is just a shadow picture pointing to this great and weightier matter. Our days were formed, were numbered. He gives all the stars their names, the overcomers. What is this great test all about? I believe it's to do with this exile. This will lay some foundations for what we will start covering at Sukkot. But I want all of you, as we conclude today, to keep in the back of your mind this theme of Yetzar, to form as a potter. Because next week we're going to look at what Isaiah was hinting at within Yah speaking to his people from an eternal perspective. There was this language of the clay standing up to the potter. And this being linked to idolatry. Next week, we're going to look at the potter and the clay. I know this is being a deep and rich and wonderful and just the type of message that makes the spirit leap and sing for joy. But there is a warning that comes with it. There is a warning, and this is what we'll look at next week. Okay? Let's stop here for today. Amen.